Hi guys, so this syllabus point is all about how to balance both symbol equations and ionic equations. Because this is something that lots of people struggle with, I've decided to put it into two videos. So this one is just about how to balance symbol equations. If you're stuck with ionic equations, then check out the next video. Let's get on with balancing some equations. This is the first one here. Sodium plus chlorine gives me NaCl, or sodium chloride. The first thing I'm going to do is put a dotted line down the middle of my page where the arrow is to separate my reactants from the products. Then I want to know how many of each element I have on each side of this line. So on the left hand side you can see there are two capital letters. There's the Na, the sodium, and there's the Cl, which is the chlorine. So two elements involved. There's only one sodium. I know this because there's no numbers near it, so just one. And with the chlorine, I've got two of them because of that little 2 in the corner. All good there. On the right-hand side, I've got NaCl. So there's no numbers, so that must mean I must have one sodium and one chlorine. So when I look at this, it's not really possible to make NaCl because where does that other chlorine go? You need to make sure that on both sides you have the same number of each element. The rules, however, mean that I can't just make this NaCl and put a little 2 in the bottom. I can only add big numbers to the front. So what I'm going to do is I need to fix the chlorine situation. So the only way to do that is to put a big 2 in front of that NaCl. And what that does is it now means that I've got two chlorines, but it also means that I've got two sodiums. So I solved one problem, but I've created another. Let's look at the other side. And if I want to solve the sodium problem, I can put a big 2 in front of the sodium, and that now means I've got two sodiums. Hopefully, you can now see that this means that everything is balanced in this equation, and that's all done. Another example for you. Hydrogen plus iodine gives you hydrogen iodide. So let's put the line down the middle and count how many of each element I have. So on the left hand side I've currently got 2 hydrogens and 2 iodines. On the right hand side I've got 1 hydrogen and 1 iodine. So I've got a problem with both the hydrogen and the iodine in this particular example. So what I'm going to do is put a big 2 in front of that HI to try and fix the problem. If you put the big 2 there, that means that I've now got 2 hydrogens and 2 iodines, which perfectly balances this equation. This one is a lot more tricky than the ones that we've looked at before now. Let's do the same as we did before. So, line down the middle. On the left-hand side, hopefully you can see there is 1 iron and there are 2 oxygens currently. On the right-hand side, there are 2 ions, 2 Fe's, and there are 3 oxygens. So let's try and solve the iron problem first. So currently I don't have enough iron on the left-hand side of the equation, so I'm going to add a big 2 in front of the Fe to try to solve that problem. So now the big 2 is there, so I've got 2 ions, but I can still see that I've got a problem with the oxygens. Now the problem is that I've got 3 on the right hand side and 2 on the left. If I add a big 2 in front of that one on the left, it now becomes 4, and that's still not going to balance out my oxygens. The only way to solve this is working out the lowest common factor on both sides. So on one side I've got 2, and on the other side I've got 3. The lowest common factor is 6, so I want to make them both equal 6 oxygens. So on the left-hand side, that means that I now need 3 O2s, that makes 6. And on the right-hand side, I need to have 2 Fe2O3s to make 6 oxygens. That also means I've now created another problem, because now I've got 4 Fe's on the right-hand side and only 2 Fe's on the left-hand side. Let's go back and change that number, because if I make that 4 Fe's, then I can solve all the problems and everything will be perfectly balanced. Right, here's a few for you to try yourself. Pause the video, have a look at these ones and see if you can solve them. This balancing equations is all about practice. The more you do, the better that you'll get at it. Pause here, the answers will appear in literally 1 second. Well, that's all on how to balance equations today. Hopefully you're feeling a little bit more confident with it and are able to do some of the examples your teacher has given you. The next video is about how to balance ionic equations, which is where it gets a little bit more tricky. So check out that video and see if you can do that too.